Very good morning to you. This is the SA Morning. Thank you for staying with us, focusing on one of the most topical stories and experiences that we are collectively going through as South Africa, and that is a focus on the poultry industry. Now, it has been hit for years with rolling blackouts. This is obviously in addition to the avian flu that we are currently experiencing. Now, that, which is the avian flu, along with the blackouts, has seen Astral Foods alone spend almost R1 billion to mitigate the impact of the challenges that they've been experiencing. The sector is now on the verge of cracking with the bird flu outbreak. Let's discuss the impact of all of this with Robert Bragg from the Free State University's Biochemistry department. Thank you for your time this morning, Robert. When we look at the impact of the bird flu, coupled with the power losses that we've experienced over the past few years, how has this really affected the egg industry and the poultry industry in general?
Well, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, the poultry industry is certainly going through very, very difficult times. The load shedding, the constant power problems are major problems for the poultry industry, because many of the poultry houses are actually environmentally controlled houses, and power is essential. And then now, to top it all, we have this major outbreak of avian influenza, which is a serious disease. It's really devastates poultry industries around the world. So we're not unique in the problems we have with avian influenza. In fact, in the past, South Africa was just about the only country that was relatively free of avian influenza. But the last couple of years, that's changed, and now we're sitting with a major crisis. And this could be the death knell for the local poultry industry, particularly the small to medium-sized poultry producers. Will they be able to survive the load shedding additional costs and now the devastating effects of avian influenza?
So let's talk about avian influenza, the avian flu. What exactly is it? And you mentioned now that over the past while, South Africa has actually been immune to it, but things have certainly changed, as we are seeing.
Yes, the disease started off, it's primarily a virus. It's obviously a virus, and it's an influenza virus. It's a virus that was originally transmitted in the northern hemisphere, particularly the USA. It was a virus that was carried by migratory water birds. And when they would fly down on their migratory routes, they would land close to poultry houses, and the disease would spread then into the poultry houses. And it slowly, systematically spread around the world. South Africa, we're not on the bird migration route from North America. So to a large extent, we were spared from avian influenza for a long time. Europe, North America has had major problems with it for an extended period of time. Now, this current outbreak started in September last year in the USA, very severe disease, high levels of mortalities, and then it spread down into South America, where places like Ecuador, Colombia, Peru had major problems. And what was particularly worrying with the situation in Peru, it got into the sea lions, and there was a large number of mortalities in sea lions in Peru, which is particularly scary. We did in the past have an avian influenza outbreak a couple of years ago, but the main control strategy is very close monitoring of the flocks, and if a flock tests positive, then the flock is eradicated, exterminated. So that is still widely the control policies in many parts of the world. Even in the USA, they focus on an eradication policy.
Let's talk about the vaccines for a moment. Will these imported vaccines actually work in eradicating avian flu, and how long will they take to actually kick in and for us to start seeing the effect of vaccination?
Vaccination is basically going to be a last resort. There's a debate around whether vaccination is a good or a bad thing. Obviously, if you're vaccinating, you lose your ability to monitor. And monitoring for avian influenza has been the cornerstone of the control in South Africa for a long time. So in other words, you look for the presence of antibodies in the birds that are being processed, and then you can see, okay, that we don't have an influenza problem. If you vaccinate, you're going to have antibodies, so you lose the ability to monitor. There's also debate around whether the vaccine will completely control the disease. It can mask the clinical signs of the disease. So vaccination, I think when you get into a point where you're going for vaccination, you are accepting that the virus is going to be around, that it's almost become endemic. So the long-term vaccination could be beneficial. The short-term, unfortunately, vaccination is not going to sort out the current problem.
Professor, is there a possibility that avian flu could be transmitted to humans as well?
That's a very interesting question. It's, as you know, people get influenza, flu virus every year. Now, normally you get influenza viruses in the birds, avian influenza. You also get influenza virus in pigs. Now, some of the major pandemics, influenza human pandemics, where we've had major problems, is where there's a reassortment of human virus, bird virus, and normally the pig virus also plays a role. And then we can have major problems. At this stage, since about 1995, there's been concerns about an influenza pandemic. The epidemiologists estimate that we overdue an influenza pandemic. And round about 1995, there was the Hong Kong avian influenza outbreak that started basically in 1995. And all the birds in Hong Kong were culled. So there's substantial concern around the ability of the virus to get into humans, and then if it develops human-to-human transmission, it can cause a major problem. Currently at this stage,
unfortunately, oh, you were saying currently at this stage?
Currently at this stage, the virus that's circulating is not getting into humans very easily. In the USA, I think there's only been one case of a human that's picked it up from the birds. It's primarily the people that are working on the farms that are at risk.
Well, thank you so much for that update, Professor Robert Bragg from the University of the Free State. I think a bit of a sigh of relief there towards the end, that currently there's nothing really to worry about as far as the transmission of bird flu to humans. But can you believe they say that we are overdue for another pandemic? How do they calculate that? But I guess these things are cyclical as well.